The arrival of Earth's secret fleet. In the silent void of deep space, the arrival of Earth's secret fleet sent ripples through the cosmos. The galaxy's mightiest powers had gathered near the Epsilon Eridani star system, their warships gleaming like dark stars against the cold expanse. Each vessel was a marvel of alien engineering, bristling with advanced weaponry, gamma turrets, plasma cannons, and phase-shifting torpedo tubes. The alien generals and admirals surveyed their armada with smug satisfaction. For centuries, their empires had dominated the galaxy, their superiority undisputed. Humanity, they believed, was a minor annoyance. Primitive, emerging only now on the galactic stage. Meanwhile, in a hidden bunker on Earth, the Global Defense Council watched the alien assembly through a high-definition transmission. Admiral Ree, a seasoned strategist with battle scars etched into his stern face, listened intently as the aliens mocked humanity. Yet, the Council knew something the aliens did not. For decades, Earth had been preparing for this very moment, and their secret fleet was poised to strike. All that was needed was the right moment. On the bridge of the Venian dreadnought, High Commander Zorth towered over his crew. His clawed fingers drummed impatiently against the viewport as he scrutinized the tiny human colony on Titan 17. To him, it was a mere speck on the map of his vast empire. "Commence orbital bombardment," he ordered with a growl. The conquest had begun. Streams of superheated plasma rained down upon the human structures below, vaporizing buildings and sending shockwaves through the ground. The colonists, outmatched and overwhelmed, scrambled for cover. Their only hope lay in the underground bunkers. Governor Adams, the leader of the Titan 17 colony, watched in horror as the alien onslaught unfolded. Dust fell from the ceiling as the bombardment continued, and she knew they were on the brink of annihilation. "Get the planetary defense cannons online," she ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos. The human guns rolled to life, sending streams of projectiles at the alien ships, but their primitive weapons were ineffective against the advanced alien shields. Zorth chuckled as he observed the pitiful human defense. "Begin the ground invasion," he commanded. Dropships descended from the alien fleet, unloading waves of Venian soldiers and war machines onto the planet's surface. The humans fought back with everything they had, but they were no match for the aliens' superior technology and numbers. The ground shook as hover tanks glided across the battlefield, cutting down human defenders with devastating precision. In the bunkers, human soldiers fought with grim determination, aware that this could be their last stand. They engaged the aliens in brutal hand-to-hand combat, using vibroblades and shock batons to take down their foes. Yet, for every alien they defeated, 5 more took their place. The colony was falling, and hope seemed lost. Just then, alarms blared on the bridge of the conquest. Zorth spun around, his eyes narrowing as he received the report. "A massive fleet has just dropped out of hyperspace at the system's edge," the officer said. "They're human ships. Their configurations are unlike anything we've seen before." Zorth's disbelief turned to rage as he stared at the view screen. A colossal human armada, easily dwarfing his invasion force, approached. At its head was a massive dreadnought, its hull bristling with guns and emblazoned with the insignia of Earth. "All ships, open fire." Admiral Ree's voice thundered through the human fleet. The human fleet surged forward, their weapons blazing. Advanced missiles and energy beams cut through the alien shields with ease, tearing Venian ships apart. The conquest shuddered under the assault, and Zorth's roars of anger and disbelief filled the bridge. "How could the humans have built such advanced weaponry without us knowing?" he bellowed. "Fall back. Regroup." But it was too late. The human fleet was relentless, their attacks coordinated with deadly precision. On the surface of Titan 17, the Venian troops began to retreat in disarray as human dropships descended, unloading reinforcements and supplies. The once dominant alien invaders were now fleeing for their lives. Across the galaxy, reports of human attacks on alien outposts and fleets began to flood in. The alien war council's laughter had turned to stunned silence. They had underestimated humanity, and the revelation of Earth's hidden fleet was a game-changer. The galaxy was about to experience a seismic shift in power. The unexpected turn. The alien fleet hung like a dark cloud over the remote human colony of Titan 17. The Venian dreadnought, its hull lined with menacing weapons, unleashed a relentless barrage of plasma fire upon the unsuspecting surface. The once thriving colony, a symbol of human determination, now faced near-total annihilation. The Venian forces, led by High Commander Zorth, seemed to relish the destruction, confident in their superiority and assured that humanity was no match for their advanced technology. On the surface, Governor Adams and her team of defense strategists scrambled to mount a counterattack. The colony's defense systems, while advanced, were struggling to hold back the overwhelming assault. Governor Adams, with her stern gaze and steely resolve, barked orders to her troops. Despite the chaos, her voice remained calm, each command calculated to maximize their dwindling resources. The planetary defense cannons roared to life, their projectiles streaking toward the invading alien fleet. But the Venian shields absorbed the human firepower effortlessly, turning the defenders' attempts at resistance into futile gestures. The situation on Titan 17 grew increasingly dire. The ground shook with each impact of the alien bombardment, and the skies were darkened by the smoke and debris of crumbling buildings. Amidst this devastation, human soldiers fought with unwavering bravery. They engaged in fierce battles with the Venian soldiers, their vibro blades and shock bands slashing through the ranks of their enemies. Yet, for every alien they felled, 5 more took their place, pushing the human defenders back. High Commander Zorth, watching from the bridge of his dreadnought, allowed himself a moment of grim satisfaction. The invasion was proceeding according to plan. He was about to order the next phase of the assault, ground invasion, when an unexpected alert interrupted his thoughts. Zorth's eyes narrowed as a report came through. A massive fleet had just emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the system. Human ships, but unlike any he had ever seen before. The report shook the Venian High Command to its core. The sight of the colossal human armada, with its sleek ships and formidable firepower, was unlike anything the Venians had anticipated. Admiral Reed's face hardened as he absorbed the news. His expression reflected a mix of steely determination and a hint of satisfaction. The time had come to reveal Earth's hidden strength. With a commanding voice, Admiral Reed ordered the fleet into action. All ships, engage the enemy. Protect our people and show these aliens the consequences of underestimating humanity. The human fleet surged forward, its advanced weaponry blazing with newfound ferocity. Missiles and energy beams tore through the Venian defenses, cutting through shields and armor with unprecedented ease. The battle was fierce and sudden. The alien ships, once confident in their invulnerability, now faced a relentless assault. The Venian dreadnoughts, once symbols of power, now struggled against the coordinated strikes of the human fleet. The Conquest, Zorth's flagship, shuddered under the onslaught, its systems failing under the relentless barrage. The High Commander's roar of frustration echoed through the bridge as he watched his fleet falter. On Titan 17, the arrival of human reinforcements turned the tide of the battle. Alien forces began to retreat in disarray as human dropships descended, bringing much-needed supplies and additional troops. The once ominous Venian invaders were now in full retreat, their advanced technology and numbers no match for the fierce resilience of the human forces. Across the galaxy, reports of human victories began to flood in. Alien outposts and fleets that had once mocked humanity were now reeling from a sudden and unexpected challenge. The galaxy, once dominated by the alien powers, was beginning to shift. Humanity's secret fleet had not only repelled the invasion of Titan 17, but had also delivered a resounding message. Earth was no longer a minor nuisance, but a force to be reckoned with. As the remnants of the Venian fleet scattered, Admiral Reed stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Vanguard. The victory was significant, But there was no time for celebration. The human fleet, now fully revealed, was poised to press its advantage. The once hidden armada, a formidable force of advanced warships and dreadnoughts, had shown its true power. The next target was clear: the Zoran Empire. The Zoran Empire, a key player in the galactic balance of power, was the next challenge for humanity. Zorak Prime, a crucial hub of Zoran industry and military might, would be the battleground. As the human fleet approached Zorak Prime, the Zoran defenders scrambled to respond. The battle for the future of the galaxy had just begun, and humanity was ready to make its mark. The new frontier. As the human fleet neared Zorak Prime, the tension on the bridge of Admiral Reed's flagship, the Vanguard, was palpable. The crew moved with a practiced efficiency, their faces illuminated by the glow of tactical displays. The defeat of the Venian forces had been a significant victory, but it was only the beginning. Zorak Prime, a hub of Zoran military and industrial power, loomed ahead, a beacon of both opportunity and peril. Admiral Reed studied the strategic overview of the Zoran defenses. The Zoran Empire was known for its formidable defenses, but humanity's recent victories had given them a crucial advantage. The Vanguard was flanked by a fleet of support ships and strike cruisers, each one bristling with advanced weaponry and technology. This new front would test the mettle of both the human forces and the Zoran defenders. On Zorak Prime, the atmosphere was tense. The Zoran military, led by General Zorak, was scrambling to respond to the unexpected human fleet. Zorak, a veteran of countless battles, was known for his tactical brilliance and his ruthless efficiency. His command center buzzed with activity as he coordinated the defense of the planet. His face was set in a grim expression, reflecting the gravity of the situation. "Prepare all defensive systems," Zorak ordered, his voice cold and authoritative. "We cannot afford any mistakes. The human fleet has already proven itself to be a significant threat. Our primary objective is to protect the planet and repel this invasion." The Zoran forces mobilized quickly, deploying their most advanced warships and defensive platforms. The outer defenses of Zorak Prime were reinforced, and a network of orbital stations and battle stations were brought online. The Zoran Empire was determined to make this battle a costly one for the invaders. As the human fleet approached the planetary defenses, Admiral Reed addressed his officers. "We faced and defeated the Venian forces, but this battle will be different. The Zorans are formidable opponents with advanced technology. Our goal is to breach their defenses and secure a foothold on the planet. Remember, we're not just fighting for territory, we're fighting for the future of humanity." The human fleet moved into position, their ships forming a tactical formation designed to maximize their offensive capabilities while minimizing vulnerability. The Vanguard led the charge, its powerful energy beams slicing through the void. The Zoran defenders, prepared for the engagement, responded with a barrage of counterfire. The sky above Zorak Prime lit up with the brilliance of battle as energy bolts and missiles streaked through space. The initial exchange of fire was intense. Zoran ships, with their advanced shielding and powerful weapons, engaged the human fleet in a fierce struggle. The Vanguard's shields flared under the impact of Zoran fire, but the human ships pressed forward with unyielding determination. Coordinated strikes from the fleet's support vessels began to breach the Zoran defenses, and the tide of battle shifted as the Zoran forces struggled to adapt to the new threat. On the surface of Zorak Prime, the situation was equally chaotic. The Zoran ground forces, well-equipped and highly trained, faced the human dropships that descended through the atmosphere. The initial landing zones were contested fiercely, with Zoran soldiers engaging human troops in brutal close-quarters combat. The human forces, though facing strong resistance, fought with a fierce resolve. The advanced technology and tactical ingenuity of the human soldiers began to turn the tide in their favor. Among the human forces on the ground was Captain Laura Grant, a seasoned veteran known for her tactical acumen and leadership skills. She led her squad through the chaos of battle, directing her troops with precision. Her goal was to secure a strategic outpost that would serve as a foothold for further operations on the planet. The fighting was fierce and unforgiving. Human soldiers used every advantage at their disposal, from advanced weaponry to tactical drones, to push back the Zoran defenders. Despite the heavy resistance, the human forces made steady progress, capturing key positions and securing vital infrastructure. Back in space, the battle raged on. The Zoran military deployed additional reinforcements, hoping to turn the tide against the human fleet. The clash of technology and strategy created a spectacle of light and energy, as the human and Zoran forces waged a high-stakes battle for control of the system. Admiral Reed, observing the unfolding conflict from the bridge of the Vanguard, knew that the battle for Zorak Prime was far from over. The Zoran Empire's defenses were proving to be resilient, and the outcome of the battle remained uncertain, but the resolve of the human fleet was unwavering. Each victory, each advance, was a testament to the strength and determination of humanity. As the battle continued, the fate of Zorak Prime and the future of the galaxy hung in the balance. The clash between the human and Zoran forces was not just a struggle for control, but a defining moment in the ongoing conflict that would shape the destiny of both civilizations. The turning point. The battle for Zorak Prime was reaching a critical juncture. The once imposing Zoran defenses, though still formidable, were beginning to show signs of strain. The human forces had managed to secure several key positions on the planet's surface, but the Zoran military was far from defeated. General Zorak, though faced with mounting pressure, maintained a stoic demeanor. He knew that the outcome of this battle could shift the balance of power in the galaxy. On the bridge of the Vanguard, Admiral Reed's strategic genius was on full display. The human fleet had sustained damage, but their determination never wavered. The Admiral's plan was clear: secure orbital superiority and then focus on critical ground objectives to undermine Zoran resistance. Status report, Reed demanded, his gaze fixed on the tactical display. "Admiral," replied Commander Lee, her voice steady despite the chaos around her, "we've successfully neutralized 2 of their orbital platforms. Our forces on the ground have managed to establish a foothold in the northern sector. However, we're encountering heavy resistance in the eastern quadrant. They're deploying new defensive measures." Reed nodded, his expression thoughtful. "Increase pressure on their defenses in the eastern quadrant. We need to keep them on the back foot, and make sure our supply lines are secure. We can't afford any disruptions." The human fleet adjusted its tactics, concentrating fire on Zoran defensive positions while providing support to the ground forces. The battle was taking a toll on both sides, with energy shields flickering and ships maneuvering through a deadly dance of fire and counter-fire. Despite the intense combat, the human forces managed to gain a crucial advantage. On the surface, Captain Laura Grant and her squad were making significant progress. They had secured several key installations, which provided a strategic edge for the ongoing conflict. Laura's tactical prowess was evident as she coordinated with other units, ensuring that each move was calculated and effective. "Captain Grant, we're holding our position at the Central Command Hub," reported Lieutenant Johnson over the comms. "But we're facing renewed attacks. The Zorans are pushing back hard." Laura glanced at the holographic map projected in front of her. "We need to reinforce our position, prepare for a counteroffensive. We can't let them retake the hub." The soldiers under Laura's command prepared for the impending clash. The Zoran forces, determined to reclaim lost ground, launched a series of coordinated assaults. The fighting was intense, with both sides engaging in a deadly exchange of fire. Human soldiers, equipped with advanced gear and weapons, fought fiercely, driven by the knowledge that each victory brought them closer to their ultimate goal. Back in space, Admiral Reed was closely monitoring the situation. The Zoran military, though resilient, was struggling to adapt to the relentless pressure from the human fleet. The Admiral saw an opportunity to deliver a decisive blow. "Prepare for a full assault on their remaining orbital defenses," Reed ordered. We need to clear the way for our ground forces to advance further, coordinate with our support ships to ensure we maximize our impact. The Vanguard and its accompanying fleet launched a coordinated attack on the remaining Zoran orbital platforms. The precision and firepower of the human fleet began to take its toll, and the Zoran defenses started to crumble under the sustained assault. As the human forces pushed forward, the Zoran defenders were forced to retreat to their last bastions. The battle was far from over, but the tide had undeniably turned in favor of humanity. The Zoran military, though still a formidable adversary, was beginning to lose its grip on the planet. In the heart of the battle, Captain Laura Grant and her squad were engaged in a fierce firefight as they fought to secure the central command hub. The Zoran forces, though demoralized, were still fighting with determination. Laura's leadership and the resolve of her soldiers proved to be a turning point in the battle. The human forces, bolstered by their recent successes, pressed forward with renewed vigor. As the central command hub fell into human hands, the Zoran military realized that their position was untenable. General Zorak, faced with the reality of the situation, made a strategic decision. The Zoran forces began a controlled withdrawal, aiming to regroup and defend key areas of the planet. Admiral Reed, observing the shift in Zoran tactics, knew that the battle was nearing its climax. "Keep up the pressure," he instructed his crew. "We've come too far to let them regroup. Let's ensure that this victory is complete." The human fleet continued its assault, pushing the Zoran defenders into a desperate retreat. On the surface, Captain Laura Grant's forces moved to consolidate their gains and prepare for the next phase of the operation. The Zoran military, though retreating, was still a formidable adversary, and the final push would require careful coordination and strategic planning. The battle for Zorak Prime was far from over, but the shift in momentum was unmistakable. The determination of the human forces and the strategic brilliance of Admiral Reed had set the stage for a pivotal moment in the conflict. The fate of Zorak Prime and the broader struggle between humanity and the Zoran Empire was hanging in the balance. The final push. As the sun began to set over Zorak Prime, the sky was filled with the glowing remnants of space battles and the fiery aftermath of intense ground conflicts. The human forces had made significant strides, but the Zoran military, although retreating, was far from defeated. General Zorak had pulled back to a heavily fortified position in the southern hemisphere of the planet, where he planned to make a final stand. Admiral Reed, aboard the Vanguard, reviewed the latest intelligence reports. The Zoran stronghold was well defended, with layered fortifications and a network of underground bunkers designed to withstand prolonged assaults. The Admiral knew that a direct assault would be costly, so he devised a plan to weaken the Zoran defenses through a combination of strategic strikes and psychological operations. "Commander Lee," Reed said, "we need to disrupt their supply lines and communications. If we can cause enough confusion, we might be able to force a critical error." Lee nodded, her face illuminated by the glow of the tactical displays. "Understood, Admiral. We'll deploy our stealth units to target their logistics and communication hubs." Meanwhile, on the surface, Captain Laura Grant and her squad were preparing for the next phase of the operation. The central command hub had been secured, but the Zoran forces were regrouping and consolidating their defenses. Laura knew that the final push would require precise coordination and unwavering resolve. "All right, team," Laura said, addressing her squad. "We've come a long way, but the toughest part is ahead. We need to hit their supply depots and disrupt their reinforcements. Once we've done that, we'll move in for the final assault on their stronghold." The soldiers, wary but determined, prepared for the mission. The Zoran stronghold, nestled in a mountainous region, was protected by a formidable array of defensive systems. The terrain was rugged, making it difficult for large-scale maneuvers, but it also offered opportunities for stealthy approaches. Captain Grant's squad embarked on their mission under the cover of darkness. Using advanced cloaking technology and tactical precision, they managed to infiltrate a Zoran supply depot located on the outskirts of the stronghold. The operation was swift and efficient. Explosives were planted, and critical supplies were sabotaged before the team withdrew to a safe distance. The explosion rocked the depot, sending shockwaves through the Zoran defenses. The ensuing chaos disrupted their supply lines and drew attention away from the main defensive positions. The psychological impact of the attack was significant, causing confusion and disarray among the Zoran troops. Back in space, Admiral Reed's strategy was taking effect. The stealth units had successfully targeted key communication hubs, further exacerbating the Zoran military's disorganization. The Admiral seized the opportunity to launch a series of precision strikes aimed at the remaining Zoran defensive positions. "Fire at will," Reed commanded. "Let's break their lines and force them into a corner." The squad members nodded, their faces reflecting a mix of pride and wariness. They were veterans of the conflict, and they understood the importance of aiding in the aftermath. As part of the recovery efforts, human engineers and construction teams were deployed to stabilize the infrastructure and provide essential supplies to the Zoran population. The local Zoran civilians, who had been caught in the crossfire, were given humanitarian aid and assistance to help them rebuild their lives. The presence of human aid workers was met with mixed reactions from the Zoran civilians. While some were grateful for the help, others were skeptical or resentful, having witnessed the destruction caused by the conflict. The humanitarian efforts were as much about mending relationships as they were about physical reconstruction. Captain Grant was involved in coordinating these efforts. She worked closely with local leaders and Zoran representatives to ensure that aid was distributed fairly and effectively. Her leadership and compassion earned her the respect of both her own troops and the Zoran civilians. Back on the Vanguard, Admiral Reed received a transmission from General Zorak, who had been captured and was now a prisoner of war. The general's demeanor was defiant, but there was an underlying sense of resignation. "Admiral Reed," Zorak said, his voice cold, "you may have won this battle, but the Zoran Empire will not be easily defeated. We will regroup and return stronger." Reed's response was measured. "General Zorak, the Zoran Empire has suffered a significant defeat, but it's clear that the conflict is far from over. Our goal is to bring about a lasting peace, not just a temporary victory." The general's eyes narrowed. "Peace is a luxury that the Zoran Empire cannot afford. Our people are strong, and our resolve is unbreakable." As the days passed, the focus shifted from the immediate aftermath of the battle to the broader implications of the conflict. Admiral Reed and Captain Grant worked on diplomatic efforts to establish a ceasefire and explore the possibility of negotiations with the Zoran leadership. The human military had achieved a significant victory, but the political and strategic landscape was complex. The Zoran Empire, despite its losses, was still a formidable power, and the potential for future conflicts remained. Captain Laura Grant was also engaged in discussions with Zoran leaders to address the long-standing grievances and build a framework for future cooperation. The goal was to find common ground and prevent further hostilities. One evening, as Laura reviewed the progress of the recovery efforts, she was approached by a Zoran civilian leader named Kale, who had been instrumental in facilitating communication between the two sides. "Captain Grant," Kale said, extending a hand, "I wanted to thank you for your efforts in helping our people. Despite the conflict, your commitment to rebuilding and understanding is appreciated." Laura shook his hand, a gesture of mutual respect. "Thank you, Kale. It's important for us to work together and ensure that we create a future where both our peoples can coexist peacefully." The rebuilding process continued, and the scars of the battle began to heal. The human forces remained vigilant, knowing that the resolution of the conflict was far from complete. The political and diplomatic efforts were crucial in shaping the future of the region and ensuring that the sacrifices made during the battle would not be in vain. As Admiral Reed looked out at the planet from the Vanguard, he reflected on the journey that had led them to this point. The victory had come at a high cost, but it had also opened the door to new possibilities for peace and cooperation. "Admiral," Commander Lee said, breaking the silence, "we've received a transmission from the Zoran government. They're open to discussions about a ceasefire and potential negotiations." Reed's eyes brightened with cautious optimism. "Let's prepare for the next steps. It's time to work toward a future where both our peoples can find common ground." The battle for Zorak Prime had been a pivotal moment in the conflict, but it was only the beginning of a larger effort to build a lasting peace. The challenges ahead would be formidable, but the determination and resilience of both the human and Zoran forces provided hope for a better future. A new dawn. The sun rose over Zorak Prime once again, casting a hopeful glow on the world still scarred by the recent conflict. The planet's surface, once a battleground, was now the site of a historic peace summit between human and Zoran leaders. This summit, carefully planned and eagerly anticipated, held the promise of a new beginning for both civilizations. Admiral Reed and Captain Grant stood at the forefront of the summit preparations. The air was charged with a mixture of tension and optimism. The delegates from both sides were arriving, each bringing with them the weight of their respective people's hopes and fears. "Everything is set for the summit," Captain Grant said, her gaze sweeping over the arrangements. "It's up to us now to ensure that the discussions lead to meaningful outcomes." Admiral Reed nodded, his expression resolute. "We've made it this far. Let's make sure that we use this opportunity to build a lasting peace." The summit took place in a specially constructed conference hall, a symbol of the collaboration between humans and Zorans. The hall was adorned with both human and Zoran symbols, reflecting the effort to merge their cultures into a harmonious whole. As the delegates took their seats, the room was filled with a palpable sense of anticipation. General Zorak, now a key figure in the Zoran delegation, cast a wary eye over the human representatives, but also showed a begrudging respect for their achievements. Admiral Reed and General Zorak were the primary figures in the negotiations. The discussions began with a review of the recent conflict and its impact on both sides. There was an open exchange of grievances, with each side presenting their perspective on the events that had led to the battle. Captain Grant facilitated the discussions, ensuring that the conversations remained constructive. Her role was crucial in bridging the gap between the two sides and finding common ground. "We've all paid a high price for this conflict," Admiral Reed said, addressing the room. "But today, we have the opportunity to turn a page and build something better. It's up to us to find a path that leads to lasting peace and mutual respect." General Zorak, that is still guarded, acknowledged the Admiral's words. "The Zoran Empire has suffered greatly, but we recognize the need for a new approach. Our people are weary of war and desire stability." As the discussions progressed, the delegates addressed key issues such as territorial disputes, resource sharing, and mutual defense agreements. The negotiations were challenging, with deep-seated mistrust and differing priorities, but there was a shared commitment to finding a resolution. One significant breakthrough occurred when both sides agreed to a provisional ceasefire and a framework for future negotiations. This included the establishment of joint committees to oversee the implementation of agreements and address any emerging issues. The breakthrough was celebrated with a ceremony that symbolized the new era of cooperation. The ceremony featured representatives from both sides exchanging symbolic tokens of peace, a gesture that marked the beginning of a new chapter in their relations. As the summit concluded, Admiral Reed and Captain Grant felt a profound sense of accomplishment. The road ahead would be complex, requiring ongoing dialogue and cooperation, but the foundation for a peaceful future had been laid. Captain Laura Grant took a moment to reflect on the journey. She stood outside the conference hall, looking out over the planet that had seen so much strife and sacrifice. The air was filled with the sounds of construction and the murmur of people working together to rebuild. Laura's thoughts were interrupted by Kale, the Zoran civilian leader who had been a key ally throughout the recovery efforts. He approached with a thoughtful expression. "Captain Grant," Kale said, extending his hand once more. I wanted to thank you again for your role in bringing about this moment. It means a great deal to our people." Laura shook his hand, a genuine smile on her face. "Thank you, Kale. It's been a team effort. We couldn't have done it without the cooperation and dedication of everyone involved." As the final details of the peace agreements were finalized, Admiral Reed and General Zorak found themselves engaged in a private conversation. The tension between them had eased, replaced by a sense of mutual respect. "Admiral Reed," Zorak said, his tone more conciliatory than before, "I never imagined that we find ourselves at this point. It's clear that there's more to gain from peace and continued conflict." Reed nodded, acknowledging the general's words. "The road to peace is often difficult, but it's worth the effort. Our peoples have the potential to achieve great things together." As the delegates departed and the summit came to a close, the atmosphere on Zorak Prime was filled with a renewed sense of hope. The efforts of the past months had paved the way for a brighter future, one where humans and Zorans could coexist and collaborate. In the days that followed, the focus shifted to the implementation of the peace agreements. Both sides worked diligently to honor their commitments and build on the progress made during the summit. The collaboration between human and Zoran forces continued, with joint initiatives aimed at rebuilding and strengthening their newfound partnership. The victory at Zorak Prime had been more than a military success. It had marked the beginning of a transformative period for both civilizations. The challenges ahead were formidable, but the spirit of cooperation and mutual respect established during the summit provided a strong foundation for a lasting peace. As Admiral Reed and Captain Grant looked out over the planet they had fought so hard to protect, they knew that their work was far from over. The journey to peace was a continuous process, but the resolve and determination of both sides offered hope for a future where conflict would give way to collaboration and understanding. The story of Zorak Prime was one of resilience, sacrifice, and the enduring quest for harmony. It was a testament to the power of diplomacy and the shared aspiration for a better world, where the lessons of the past would guide the way to a more hopeful and united future. The end.